The town of Hollow Creek was known for its secrets. It was a place where the past and present seemed to intertwine, creating an air of mystery that was palpable. It was a place where shadows lingered a little too long and whispers followed you home. The townsfolk spoke in hushed tones, their eyes darting nervously as if the very air carried tales of old. But no place held more mystery than Larchwood Lane. This narrow, winding path was the subject of countless stories and legends, each more chilling than the last. The old road wound its way through dense woods, swallowed by fog most nights. The fog would roll in, thick and impenetrable, making the lane seem like a portal to another world. The fog seemed to have a life of its own. It moved with an eerie grace, enveloping everything in its path, as if it were a living, breathing entity. It clung to the ancient trees lining the lane, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The trees themselves seemed to whisper secrets to the fog, adding to the lane's eerie atmosphere. The air always felt heavy on Larchwood Lane, thick with the weight of unseen things. It was as if the very atmosphere was charged with the energy of those who walked the path before. Some said the fog held the memories of those lost on the road, their sorrows clinging to the mist. The fog seemed to absorb the emotions of the past, creating a palpable sense of melancholy. Others wouldn't dare speak its name, afraid to even acknowledge its existence. The lane was a taboo subject, a place that was better left unmentioned. But on this night, the fog was more than just a shroud. It was a presence, a silent observer to the events unfolding on Larchwood Lane. It was a silent accomplice. The fog seemed to watch, to listen, and perhaps even to judge. It was as if the very essence of Larchwood Lane had come alive, ready to reveal its secrets to those brave enough to venture into its depths.
Colin gripped the steering wheel of his truck, his knuckles white in the pale glow of the dashboard. The rhythmic thud of the windshield wipers did little to ease his growing unease. He was running late, the delivery schedule thrown off by an unexpected detour. Now he found himself on Larchwood Lane, a route he usually avoided. The rain hammered against the truck, blurring the world outside into an indistinguishable mess of grey and black. The headlights cut through the fog only a few feet ahead, casting eerie shadows that danced and twisted along the roadside. He was used to lonely roads, to the solitude of long hauls. But there was something different about Larchwood Lane tonight. Something felt off. As Colin rounded a bend, a flash of white caught his eye. It appeared suddenly, a ghostly figure illuminated by the truck's headlights. He slammed on the brakes, the truck skidding slightly on the slick asphalt. His heart pounded in his chest as he strained to see through the downpour. There, standing on the side of the road, was a young girl. She couldn't have been more than 10, her small frame swallowed by an oversized white dress. Her long, dark hair was plastered to her face, but even through the rain he could see her eyes. They were wide and dark, reflecting the headlights back at him like two tiny mirrors. Colin rolled down the window, the roar of the storm filling the cab. The rain lashed against the glass, creating a cacophony that drowned out his thoughts. "Are you all right?" he called out, his voice barely audible above the wind. The storm was relentless, making it hard to hear anything but the howling gusts. The girl didn't answer. She just stood there, her thin arms wrapped around her body as if she were cold. Her clothes were soaked through, clinging to her small frame. He hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to do. The storm was getting worse, and he knew he couldn't leave her out there. It wasn't safe for a child to be out here alone, especially in this weather. The wind was picking up, and the rain showed no signs of letting up. "Do you need a ride?" he asked, his voice gentler this time. He tried to sound reassuring, hoping to coax her into the car. "Where are your parents?" The girl remained silent, her gaze never leaving him. Her eyes were wide, filled with an emotion he couldn't quite place. There was something unsettling about her stillness, about the way she seemed to absorb the sounds of the storm around her. It was as if she were a part of the storm itself. The hair on the back of Colin's neck prickled with unease. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. This was wrong. This was all wrong. The storm, the girl, the silence. It all felt like a bad dream he couldn't wake up from. The wind seemed to pick up, swirling around the truck as if trying to warn me. I could have sworn I heard whispers carried on the breeze, faint and indistinct, like voices from a forgotten dream. I shook my head, trying to clear the growing sense of dread that had settled over me. I had to get out of here. Look, I'm going to call the police. They'll help you get home.
He reached for his phone, his fingers trembling slightly. As he did, he noticed that the girl had taken a step closer to the truck. Her eyes, fixed on him with an unnerving intensity, seemed to glow brighter in the darkness. The radio crackled to life as he turned the key in the ignition. It was tuned to the local news station, and the announcer's voice was a jarring interruption to the oppressive silence that had settled over the truck.
Police are asking for the public's assistance in locating 8-year-old Lily Evans. Lily was last seen.
Colin's blood ran cold. 8 years old, white dress, long dark hair. The description matched the girl outside perfectly. He risked a glance back at her, his heart pounding in his ears. She hadn't moved. She was still standing there, her eyes locked on him, a ghost-like figure illuminated by the red glow of his taillights.
The announcer continued, last seen near Larchwood Lane. The rain poured down, creating a somber backdrop to the already grim news. Lily has been missing for 3 days, and authorities are concerned for her safety. The search parties have been relentless, combing through every inch of the area despite the relentless downpour. Colin fumbled for the volume knob, his hand shaking so badly that he could barely turn it. The static of the radio mirrored the chaos in his mind, a mind that couldn't focus on anything but the thought of his missing daughter. The voice on the radio faded, replaced by the relentless drumming of the rain. Each drop felt like a ticking clock, counting down the moments since Lily had disappeared. He reached into his pocket, his fingers closing around the worn photograph he always carried with him. It was his lifeline, a tangible connection to the daughter he loved so dearly. His daughter, his Lily. The photograph captured her essence perfectly, her smile radiating warmth and innocence. Gone too soon, taken by a reckless driver on a rain-soaked night just like this one. The memory of that night haunted him, the screeching tires, the blinding headlights, and then the silence. He stared at her smiling face, the edges of the photograph softened from years of being held, of being kissed. Each crease and fold told a story of love and loss, of a father who would never stop searching. His chest ached with a familiar grief, a dull ache that never truly went away. It was a pain that had become a part of him, a constant reminder of the daughter he had lost, and the hope that he clung to that one day he might find her again, find her. Slowly he looked back at the girl outside. The fog seemed to part around her as if she were the eye of the storm. Her eyes, no longer reflecting his tail lights, were filled with a profound sadness, an ancient sorrow that belied her young age. And in that moment he understood. This wasn't a random encounter. This wasn't a coincidence. This was Larchwood Lane, a place where the veil between worlds thinned, where the echoes of the past whispered on the wind, and she was one of them. A lost soul forever bound to the road where she had taken her last breath.
The next morning, the fog had lifted, revealing a Larchwood Lane bathed in the soft light of dawn. The rain had stopped, and the only sound was the gentle chirping of birds hidden amongst the trees. There was no sign of the girl, no trace of Colin's truck. The only evidence that anything out of the ordinary had occurred was a single white ribbon tied to a branch by the side of the road, fluttering gently in the breeze. And if you listened closely, very closely, you might have heard it. A faint ethereal laughter carried on the wind, a sound both beautiful and heartbreaking. a reminder that some promises echo through eternity.